Hello, welcome to the People Profit Podcast, the show where we flip the script on traditional business thinking and prove that when you put people first, profits follow. I'm Sandra Coker, your guide on this journey to more engaged teams, loyal customers, and a healthier bottom line. These episodes are brought to you by Human Power Solutions, helping organizations unlock the human potential that powers performance. Whether you're a leader, an HR pro, or a curious change maker, buckle up. We're diving into fresh stories, real-world strategies, and a few laughs along the way. Ready to turn your workplace into a profit-powered people machine? Let's get started. Welcome to the People Profit Podcast, where we dive into strategies and mindsets that turn great leaders into transformative ones. I'm Sandra Coker, CEO of Human Power Solutions and author of the book People Profit. And today we're exploring the power of duality in leadership, how embracing both strength and softness, strategy and empathy creates teams that thrive without burnout. Our guest today is Brandi Munguia. Did I say that correctly?
Yes. My husband said, welcome to the unique name game. And it's Munguia.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, yes.
She is a speaker, a business strategist, and the founder and CEO of her collective, H3R Collective, where she builds high-touch ecosystems for visionary entrepreneurs. She's the creator of the Aligned Authority Method, helping leaders design premium offers, curate impactful events, and foster value-driven communities, all while honoring ambition and humanity. Brandi, welcome to the show. Excited to unpack how duality shapes today's workplaces.
Thank you so much for having me, Sandra. I'm so excited to pour into this audience and just really dive into why duality can be one of the best things that you master as a leader, but also as an individual. So
let's go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So for our audience, if Brandi's insights today resonate with your leadership challenges, please hit the like, follow, share, and subscribe button to the podcast. Your support helps us bring more conversations like the one we're about to have. Let's get started, Brandi. All right. So I met you through Mastermind Group. You and I have known each other probably about a year and change, and your energy has always been just so infectious for me. So I'm really excited to have you here today. Your journey into leadership was shaped more by life experiences than formal titles, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I'd always kind of grew up in this environment where I was consistently navigating change in my life, where I chose to continue to prosper. And when we look at the power of duality, leadership for me meant being able to handle pressure and presence, being present and being a calm within a storm. And I think a lot of leaders can resonate with this, where they say, I thrive in chaos. And what would that look like if we reframed chaos as us being successful? What would that look like if chaos was that success is chaotic? Business is chaotic. When we look at creating change, it can be chaotic. Instead of it being destructive chaos, what would it look like to have constructive chaos?
And I love that.
That is something that has shaped me in a lot of areas of my life. And where it really amplified my leadership was when in a part of a team, when the team's like, what are we going to do? And how are we going to make this? How are we going to bridge the gaps? And it's being able to calmly see where the gaps are and produce results based off of other people's strengths. And one of the things that I enjoy in my life is the ability to have grit and tenacity. And when we look at grit and tenacity and how they work hand in hand, it's the ability to endure and be the one that looks for what is an opportunity versus catastrophe. When we reduce catastrophizing and we look at our ability to persevere, and we look at the ability to not only create a shift in a movement of overcoming the obstacle, but where I really like to speak volume to the progress over perfect,
I
right?
love that.
Because
Yeah.
when we allow ourselves to compound in the progressive aspects of growth and change, that's where we really start to see prosperity happen. And this goes for everybody in business that's been successful. They always say it wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Even though it looks like it.
Yeah, and it's the ability to choose to persevere time and time and time again. And that is something I've had to do in my life time and time and time again, is that choice to persevere under pressure.
Love it. Love it. See, audience, I told you the energy is just like through the roof, which I love. I love. Can you tell me a little bit about, was there a key moment where you saw that you didn't get results without humanity or empathy? It just it doesn't scale if you don't have the humanity or empathy. Is there any stories you can tell us in your journey where, that hard line, you're not getting results, but when you bring in hey,
Absolutely.
how are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a really great question because we need to humanize our teams, our clients, and where there's this line between empathy and sympathy, right?
Yep.
Empathy is I'm with you, I see
Yep.
you, and I will not let you catastrophize this. Okay, there's lines where there's sympathy is necessary when somebody maybe has experienced a loss, they need time off, they need a break,
Yeah.
where we don't allow them to ruminate in their pain as leaders is where the empathy comes forward. And the
Yep.
pain isn't always necessarily attached to a traumatic event. It could be something of maybe you didn't hit the expectations you had for the quarter. Maybe the team fell short on a deadline. Maybe there's these pieces where we need to humanize elements with our teams. And when I was working really closely with my team and building a team, specifically coming into a space where I was called forward as a leader, and even now building my team,
Yeah.
human experiences are checking in one with people's strengths. Okay. Because sometimes you might have key players on your team who are not playing in their lane. You're
Right.
placing them in places where they don't actually enjoy being. It's not that they can't do it, it's that they don't enjoy doing it. And so
Right.
there's instant resistance there. And one of those things that I had recognized in some of finding out what people enjoy is really listening and tuning into, could someone have a specific skill set? Absolutely, they can. And what lights them up, and skill sets can be very different, right? So when you watch your team light up and giving them opportunities, watch them light up in the areas they enjoy and then start placing them in those areas more. And when life strikes, when life happens, we do not want to negate that they are facing something difficult, and truly checking in and asking them, do you need time? And how much time do you need? And how much time does that look like to where your space is secured, where either I can have another person fill that gap, or do we need to take a sabbatical? Like, really check in and humanize your team, because there's been times and seasons where I would notice where things might dip in my team performance, and I'd have to check in with the human of that team and say, what's going on? This isn't normal behavior for you. It's not like you to show up late. It's not like you to not answer. It's not like you to be kind of down in a meeting. And when we check in with that humanization, and they say, you know what, I am actually experiencing this, this, and this, and I'm able to meet them where they're at and say, I hear you. How can I better support you? As leaders, that's the best question you can ask out of empathy. How can I better support you? Not how I can save you, not how I can take it off your plate, but how can I support you? They will tell you. They will say, I'm having a really tough time. And you can meet them with solutions. Sometimes they're looking for support. Sometimes they're looking for solutions. Okay. Those are the two areas we ask when we meet people in a leadership conversation, where you need to empathize and say, okay, if you need support, I'm willing to meet you where you're at. If you need solutions, I'm able to fill those gaps. where I will sympathize and say, you know what, if you're experiencing something and this is, really difficult to work alongside this traumatic event you're experiencing, one, you don't need to pretend that's not happening. And two, there's things in place. Well, these are the services you have access to. These are the support systems you have access to. We don't want them to feel like they're going to lose their job because they're having an experience in their life. And they're feeling like they can't say that because they don't want it to feel like a weakness. They're a strong individual. They are someone who is a high performer. They've never missed a meeting. They've never been late before. So once you see things that are out of character, then meet them where they're at and say, hey, I am so sorry that you are experiencing this loss. I am so sorry you're experiencing this difficulty co-parenting, or you're experiencing this difficulty where you're moving right now. I didn't know you were moving. I didn't know that you were adapting. So I have those human connections with them so that they can, one, you see them and say, hey, one, congratulations on your move. I'm happy to give you those couple of days so you can get recalibrated in your new space. I can absolutely handle filling this gap while you're integrating. And they will watch them kick up, watch them one, feel support and say, I actually don't need the time off. I'm okay. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm not the best thing you can say to someone that's on your team. And I want everyone to hear this, because this is where you meet people with empathy versus sympathy. You say, I don't have an unfair expectation of you. Watch that teammate, that team member, that peer melt when they hear that. Watch their shoulders drop when you say, I don't have an unfair expectation of you. Because oftentimes they have an unfair expectation of themselves, and they're venting a expectation you might have, which you don't. So when you meet them with that statement of, I don't have an unfair expectation of you, then they're able to see, okay, maybe I can be okay in this season. And this is where we meet them with empathy in duality. And as a leader, I would often meet my team, or even in this new season of building business, duality does not stop. The negative does not stop in your seasons of positive. And sometimes the negative can be ripping Band-Aids off on your team. That's another part we have to talk about in duality.
Right. Well, one thing, like when you talk about support, I think about support versus saving, right? Like,
Correct.
it's not going to be up to me to save you.
Yes.
Support means I'm coming underneath.
Yes.
To lift you up and to hold you up.
Yes.
And whatever that support, whatever that support is built upon, that's what I can help you with. And I think that is it's a key thing for leaders to remember. Like, we're not here to fix your problems. We certainly can help you. We certainly can help you, navigate through them if we need to.
Absolutely.
In the workplace.
Absolutely. And there comes a line too where if you have a team member that is more of a, it's like, how do we navigate this? So when I talk about ripping off Band-Aids, right? There's sometimes where as owners, you have to make awareness points that when you invest in a team member, in their salary, if they're not performing at the standard of that role, then sometimes you have to make difficult decisions. And that's where, like, it's not that you're not humanizing yourself in those decisions. It's that sometimes you have to make objective, business-driven decisions that as a heart-centered leader, it's really hard to make those choices sometimes. And that's the part about where we can empathize versus sympathize, okay? Because if you have team members that have learned patterns of catastrophizing to get more time off, to get to manipulate getting certain places, and really, like, again, catastrophizing, there comes a point as a leader where you got to rip that Band-Aid off, and you have to have the hard, difficult decision and the hard, difficult conversation. If the pattern is there, if it looks like a red flag, it's a red flag. And sometimes as heart-centered leaders, we have a hard time making that choice. And objectively, when we look at the return on investment, It's okay if you've sometimes have made a poor decision, and it's not necessarily you, but as owners and as leaders and as this, the founders of that, radical like ownership falls on
Yeah.
you. Whether
Yeah.
it's their fault or not, it's this part where you say, you know what? I take radical ownership of this. And
Yeah.
based off of the patterns, based off of this behavior, based off of XYZ, I have to make this decision for the business. It's not personal. And
Right.
they will have to do what? Have the repercussions of their own behaviors.
Right. Yeah.
And
That's
that's
so
a pretty big
powerful.
one. Yes.
So powerful.
It's huge. I
Yeah.
help so many business owners make those choices. It's tough.
And you've observed like this polarization in today's workplaces where leaders either being too hard or leading to burnout or too soft, causing confusion, right?
100%.
How has integrating both sides helped you create environments where teams feel seen and empowered?
Oh, this is a great question, because here's where I want to speak to everyone listening here. There is no such thing as work-life balance, my friends. It is work-life integration.
Yeah, I call it work-life blend.
Yeah, there has to be work-life integration. But
Yes.
you as the leader must model the balance of duality. And what that looks like is you could be experiencing massive pressure in your home life, and that needs to stay at the door when you step into your business, whether it's you logging into that Zoom call, you getting on a call with a client, you navigating an event. It needs to stay at the door so that your team, your peers, your clients see your ability to compartmentalize.
Yes.
And when we look at leadership, there's this beautiful blend of compartmentalization. And where that needs to live in your duality. You compartmentalize what is creating stress and pressure, because it is not your team that needs to fix that. It's you. And again, it goes back to the radical leadership side, that if your team is questioning, what do we do? How do we do? Then you got to look in the mirror, because sometimes if the leader is too vacant because they are not they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with and unable to compartmentalize, and they're trying to like let the team, diffuse without their direction. If your team is not strong enough to create direction on their own, and you're not able to exit in a way that they're able to handle it on their own yet, then you got to look in the mirror and compartmentalize. Right? Because if you're bringing it to the table and you are projecting onto your team, or you're attacking your team when you're the one falling short as the leader, that is where there needs to be an ability to self-regulate and also have the self-awareness. And this is where leaders, sometimes they need to be reminded that maybe they do need to access some additional tools outside of their business to get some support and solutions. And their team is not the support and solutions. They need to lean back into a therapeutic space or a toolbox to go process and go get the support they need outside of the workplace. And
even a mentor outside, or
hire a mentor, hire somebody that can help relieve that pressure that is showing up in your workplace, because and here's the other factor too. Because we talk about the polarization aspect of someone being so hard on their team because they don't humanize the team. They have unfair expectations of the team because they don't hold fair expectations in themselves. Now, as high performers, of course, we're always going to be looking at what's next and how can I perform at a high level? How can I make that, shorten that deadline, XYZ, whatever that may be, right? So there's these pieces where we have to make a cognitive decision of saying, here's where I have to meet my team where they're at and call them up, and where I necessarily may need to call someone out, but I cannot let somebody be a continuous stick in the spokes. You know what I mean? Because if you're too nice, if you let it go too much, it will become a pattern. If you let that person show up more than once late, if you let them make excuses every time, they will do it, and they will learn that they can do it. There's these, it's like tiny paper cuts. Okay. Once is it okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
Twice is like, all right, this is starting to create an issue. 3 times you're
Yeah.
like, okay, listen. It's those factors where I had to learn that dance as being someone who is an emotional person. Like I care deeply. I do. And I had to
Yes.
make very objective decisions when things were showing patterns or things were coming forward. You cannot ignore that.
Yeah.
In your fullness of your integrity, you cannot ignore that. Because
Yeah.
if you tolerate things that are not in full integrity, in its fullest integrity, what does that tell your team? If
Mhm.
you're not showing up in integrity, if your team's not showing up in integrity and you're leaning into tolerance of that, you need to address that at the help
So
because
let's talk about that for a minute.
yeah,
So
yeah,
your philosophy centers on you want leaders to master duality, right? So
yeah.
holding opposing truths, authority and emotional intelligence, right? Because they can
Ooh,
kind of
yeah,
butt heads, right?
yeah.
Why is this the separator between like transactional managers and transformative leaders?
Ooh, I love this. I love this because there's a deep care for your team and a professional veil that's really important to hold.
Yeah.
There is caring about your team, caring about them as humans, caring about their experiences, making sure they feel valued, while also holding the professional boundary and veil to not pierce that veil and cross over in ways
Mm,
that could jeopardize your integrity as a leader. And I
yeah.
think there's really important things there where as leaders, it's important to hold boundaries with clients, with your peers, with your team, that you can have a professional presence and a very private life, my friends. You
Yes.
can keep your privacy in what you might be navigating in the closed doors that need to be compartmentalized and not
Mhm.
share those things with your team and still be able to humanize yourself through your
Yeah.
ability to care and love and giving them respect and where you will not allow them to manipulate you, right? So
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
that's where there's this balance of emotion and there's this piece that I like to talk about where you become a like a calm confidence where like
Yep.
you can have confidence in your ability to have emotional intelligence where
Yep.
you will also be able to control a room in your tonality and your presence where they need to see you care but that they cannot manipulate you, that you
Mhm.
care and that you are not going to pierce the professional veil. And
Right.
that's very important to hold the professional veil. And it doesn't mean that you're being inauthentic. It means that you're having a public presence. You
Yeah.
can connect with people and have an authentic connection point with them and very much protect your privacy and what goes on
Yeah.
outside of those business settings. You
So
know,
I'd
like
love
that's very
you.
important.
So I've known you in the professional setting for a while, and you and I have gotten to know each other personally. So, which I think I love this. I want you, if you can, I think about this for a minute. Can you share a story from your work where you had to balance empathy and some really high standards, to turn a team performance around, especially like a high stake settings, events, things like that. So,
Uh,
where yeah. Do you have a story for that?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I've done a lot of events.
Yeah, I know. I know you
I've
have.
done
I
a
know.
lot of events and
Yeah.
where
And there's a lot of pressure.
a lot of pressure, absolutely. And when you're running an event, especially in an executive role, because I was an executive director for a high level mastermind, especially for these legends in our industry, there's a
Right.
lot of pressure that comes with that presence. There was a
Mhm.
moment where I had to hold duality. Okay. There was a
Yeah.
turning point in this experience with our members. And as someone who had to come forward and present in a way where I saw behind the scenes what was really happening, and then having
Yeah.
to present in a way that was not going to affect the audience experience and being able to hold firm on that,
Yeah.
where the ability to present and give an experience, you can go and crumble in your hotel. You don't get to crumble from the stage.
Right.
And that's a very important line to hold as a leader, that you have to be able to hold that presence in that front of room so that no one else knows what's going on in the behind the scenes. Because when people invest in a high level experience, whether it's a mastermind, an event, a workshop, a webinar, it doesn't matter. You have to be able to hold it together from the front of that room, go crumble in your free time. And that's the thing that, like, I've had it where I've had really difficult conversations 5 minutes before I have to go facilitate something. And I have to be able to quickly compartmentalize and facilitate in my fullness, in my energy, and not give an ounce that I'm exhausted. Okay. So prime example, there was a week, this is a prime wonderful example of what it's like to be a working mom. Okay. Because I choose to never miss a moment, even if I miss sleep. Okay. So here's a prime example. I flew out to Scottsdale to go and record content in studio. I said, okay, I'm willing and I'm wanting to do this. I can do this. In the same week, we had a workshop that was about to host 60 people in the office, and I was facilitating in that space. So everyone else was going in studio to come early for this event, and then they were just going to make that work. For me, I had a concert for my daughter, her very first concert in person. And now if anyone's listening, you're going to love this. Like, my daughter is a music fan. Okay. She's 10 years old and she loves Linkin Park. And Linkin Park coming out of retirement and doing a world tour. I got these tickets a year in advance. Okay. And I am not about to miss this concert for my daughter, but I've got this pressure of I've got to be ready in presenting and not skip a beat in this recorded content in the studio that's about to go and be a part of this massive course. And I'm saying, okay, how can I make this work? So I fly into Scottsdale the day of for the recording. I go and I have this recording. And then I had a friend that was in town that was like, hey, I'm in town now. She lives out of country. And now I'm like, okay, here's the thing. All right, I can go in the studio. I can go have lunch with my friend, and I'm going to go fly home tonight. I am going to hopefully sleep. And then I'm going to take my daughter to this concert, which was a surprise, by the way. So I'm flying in to this. I record in studio. I have lunch with my friend. I fly home. The next morning, I'm like getting everything ready for my daughter's surprise. Now, this girl does not want to go to school. She is crying. She is like, I don't feel good. I'm like, no. She has no idea. She has no idea there's a concert tonight and she doesn't feel good. Like, how am I supposed to make this work? Like, okay, what am I going to do? You know? And so I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep her home from school today, and I'm still going to figure out how to do this surprise. I'm recognizing she was testing me because I flew out, and she knew that I was going to fly out again the next day. She was kind of confused. Why did mom come home? And now she's going to turn around and leave. So she was testing me. Okay. So I had to keep myself together. All right. Because I don't want to give up the surprise. I'm running on 4 hours of sleep from the day before. And I'm like, okay, I got to make sure my baby's not actually sick. And let's talk through this. Right. So I take her to breakfast. I do these things. And I'm like really sitting with her, and I'm walking through these emotions and recognizing, like, okay, this is a test of will and power. And so so I end up actually getting to surprise her about this concert. Now we go to this concert. It is core memory concert. Okay. That concert went until 11:30. We didn't get home until about 1:00 in the morning. I turned around and flew back to Scottsdale at 5 a.m. to be ready and ready to go for that workshop. I literally brought my suitcase to the venue and was ready I was there 5 minutes before our team stand up. Now, I was running on fumes. When I tell you fumes from the studio day, fumes from the concert, and 2 hours of sleep, I took a nap to go and then facilitate. Okay. Now I show up to this workshop. I'm ready to go, full energy, because again, I want to remind you, as leaders, no one can know that you are exhausted. Okay. So me and my 6 shots of espresso, we're having a great morning. And at the end of the day, I showed up in my fullest energy. And in that experience with the facilitations, when you're facilitating in a fully immersed workshop like this, it is going to be 4 hours straight, no breaks. Okay. So I have to be able to reset myself, not only ready to present and facilitate in my fullest energy. So they had no idea I was at a concert the night before. They have no idea I was running on 2 hours of sleep. They were like, gosh, I love your energy. And I'm like, me too, sis. And they're like, are you going to eat lunch? I'm like, nope, because I need to come over here and get prepped for my next station. I'm not eating lunch. I need to make sure I FaceTime my daughter. Okay. So here's the thing. I went from a studio back home to a concert, back to a venue to do this event in 3 days. And I made sure that I checked in with my husband, checked in with my daughter while I was facilitating for 2 full days. Then I get to go home and rest. Yeah. There is no in between. So it's the ability to handle and compartmentalize. Was I exhausted? Absolutely. That would not have been fair to the experience of the people who invested $6,000, $10,000 to be in a room for 2 full days immersed to launch their businesses. It would not have been fair if I showed up with exhaustion and low energy and all these things. When I get to do what I love and love what I do, as a leader, it is important that we leave that exhaustion at the door and we culminate all the energy it takes to deliver a phenomenal experience for the people who are there to learn from you. And this is the part that I love about being a mompreneur, because I got to take my daughter to a core memory concert and then turn around and teach people and do what I love for 2 full days and then come home and sleep for a full 24 hours. Yeah. And my husband, we missed you this week. And I was like, honey, I was here. And my husband's like, it's okay, babe. You go and sleep. Not the best sleep of my life on that Saturday. But I'll tell you, do I regret any of it? Absolutely not. Could I make it work? I absolutely did.
Yeah. And that, I think, those are the extremes, right? But at that point, you weren't even a mompreneur at that point. You were a corporate mom.
Yeah. I mean, you
were working for someone. That was your paycheck.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as an entrepreneur, I have different streams of income. So although I was in a corporate setting, I had other things I'm navigating in the background. So while all that's going on, I'm also getting emails and things that I'm having to navigate at the same time. Like it's when we look at entrepreneurship, even though I was in a corporate setting, I was still building. There's a lot going on there. Some of us live in that duality, where you're working for someone while building for you, while also navigating all of the other things that go on in your other streams of income. Because that's the other factor of being an entrepreneur, is that it's not just what you do for work. It's where your investments are hitting the ceiling, where you got your CPAs reaching out because, oh, by the way, this is happening, right? Or like something happens with your home or whatever it may be. There's going to be these multiple areas of leadership. Where are you leading in your life? Whether it's you being a mom, you being a business leader, you being in the corporate space, how are you navigating that entirety in its work-life integration? Where is it being integrated so that things don't fall wayward and that you become the source of stability no matter what strikes while you're doing all of the things?
So, I think for our listeners out there, if you're listening and if you're a female out there and you're thinking about, corporate, going to entrepreneurship, so many of us have been working in our corporate positions and then had our stuff like we're building on the side. And that's it. It takes sacrifice, and it does take duality to be able to do that. And I'm the first person to say I'm all for that, because I think it's I just love it.
And to not burn out, it's like we're not burn out, burning the candle on both ends, building and leading. Like there's that factor too.
There is.
Running a business is hard. Developing your people shouldn't be. At Human Power Solutions, we act as your outsourced chief learning officer, designing custom learning and development experiences that actually move the needle. No fluff, no cookie cutter workshops, just results. Whether your people need better communication, stronger leadership, or less burnout, we provide strategic solutions that align with your goals and keep your team moving forward. Visit hpowersolutions.com and unlock your team's full potential without disrupting operations.
So let's talk about leading through change, because I think a lot of our leaders, and this podcast or the message that People Profit really wants to bring is really to help these younger up and coming leaders, really think about how do you serve, like what kind of servant leader are you going to be, and what, and not to lose your humanity, because I feel like, and what I've seen is I'm a Gen Xer, and our generation just really, we don't have a whole lot of empathy. I do, kind of. But we weren't raised that way. So this younger generation, or this new generation coming up, how do you help them learn how to lead through change while honoring the human side? Like, how does duality help to maintain trust without sacrificing results?
Ooh, this is great. Man, you're asking really good questions today. And this is something that, for me in particular, one of the things I had to reframe for myself as a high achiever is growing up, I was always told, no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
If you're not experiencing pain, you don't deserve the gain. But what would it look like if it was not experiencing pain and having the gain? Okay. So let's reframe it. Instead of experiencing pain and then you get to have the gain, what if it meant that you could have the gain without the pain? What if it meant that your ability to persevere and to handle pressure and to persevere through pressure and to overcome the obstacles and experience the gain, that pain doesn't have to be catastrophic. Pain is pressure. So what if it said without pressure, there's no gain? There has to be pressure. There has to be
100%.
And it's the ability to navigate pressure and not back down.
Yeah. And not let it be chaotic.
Exactly.
At the beginning, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And so where we keep the humanity is that people are going to experience pain. We need to reframe it as pressure. And we need to show them their ability to handle pressure. Pressure is not breaking. It is pressure. It is bending. It's the ability to mold, be malleable, be able to persevere into that next version, that next iteration of something. Pressure creates presence. And so we have to be able to.
I love that.
Yeah, because if we can face pressure without breaking, we are forced to be present. And where the ability to not burn out is saying, okay, if I'm experiencing a high level of pressure, where do I need to release pressure? Do I need to bring on a new hire? Do I need to let go of someone who's creating so much stress and pain and pressure? Do I need to lean into a coach or a mentor right now? Do I need to, where am I experiencing a turning point in pressure so that it's not pain, it's pressure? If it starts to produce pain, then we need to look at where do we relieve pressure, because it's not meant to be painful. The same goes in sport. Okay. When you're recovering from injury, if there is pain and not pressure, when you're going through any type of rehabilitation, the therapist will always ask you, is that painful or does it feel like pressure? Right. If it's painful, you're going to break something worse and you may not be able to recover. Right. So we in business, we got to look at that too. If there was an injury to your business, an injury to your relationship, an injury to your circumstance, there was temporary pain. Now there's pressure. So where we don't want to touch the wound and say, okay, where do I need to relieve pressure? Where do I need to lean in and feel like, okay, this is pressure. It's starting to feel like pain. And I need to be mindful of pain versus pressure so that I can have a gain. And if we keep getting sucked into suffering equals success, that is not the way. Because in the end of the day, like success, like I said before, success is chaotic. Let it be that you thrive in that chaos as a problem solver, as a person who calibrates and creates foundation and success and solutions, as someone who is the calm in the storm. Don't be the storm.
Don't be the storm. Yeah. So if you think about, so let's talk about that for a minute, because that kind of leads me to my next question. You talk about self-leadership coming first, like regulating yourself sets the tone.
Absolutely.
How do leaders help to that? When you talk about to young leaders, like master your own inner duality, right?
Yes. Yes.
how does that directly impact the organizational culture, retention, and success? Because retention, we don't really talk about too much, but the cost of turnover is huge.
Absolutely huge.
And so many employers and leaders think these employees are commodities. Next.
Yeah. And this is where I would speak to these young leaders around, where are you placing your loyalty? Because it's okay to expire loyalty to people and places that do not have positive intention for you. You need to place that loyalty back into yourself and be able to also look at decision making through objectivity versus emotion. And if you catch yourself making decisions emotionally, then 9 times out of 10, that decision is not actually going to benefit you and the outcomes of what the business needs. You need to be able to look at decisions objectively and remove your emotion from the outcome. Because when we make objective decisions, the outcome is often more positively impactful. And then the emotional gain comes from that objective decision. When you make decisions emotionally, it will often have a negative outcome because you've invested your emotion in a loyal decision versus something that needs to be a decision based off of objectivity. And you can be loyal to your business. You can be loyal to your team. Where you need to place loyalty back into you is if where we, as young people, we often think, gosh, I have to sacrifice myself in order to be successful. Stop laying on your own sword.
You're right.
Because here's the thing, you can be successful without sacrificing your soul. You can hold boundaries. In fact, in organizations, and you can probably speak volume to this, the leadership teams will respect you more for holding boundaries than sacrificing yourself. They will actually expect that.
It's crazy. Like I just had something today where something happened a few weeks ago with a colleague of mine who I've worked with for several years, and something happened that was, in my opinion, pretty unethical towards our company. And I had so much struggle about the loyalty and like how that person was feeling versus what it was doing to the company. 100%. And today I was like, I emotionally, I was like, you're dead to me. Right. But I didn't do that emotionally at first, although I wanted to. And then it's been a few weeks. And today I was like, you know what? It's still not sitting. And so I got bored, but I didn't do it at an emotional level. I did it when I wasn't highly charged. I've been thinking and thinking about it and made that, make that decision. And I think the young leaders, because I think the emotions are so high these days. People just make these decisions.
Absolutely. And when you have high loyalty, and that's important to you, loyalty is one of your core values. When you see someone lacking integrity, it makes you start to lose loyalty, where you're like, if this person lacks integrity, it's making me resistant to be loyal. And it's okay to expire loyalty when you see things that do not align with you ethically, or in it is setting off a red flag. Do not ignore the red flags. I think when we look at young leaders, they think, gosh, I have to pretend that this doesn't affect me because I want to climb the corporate ladder. And it's like, what would it look like if you were a voice of challenge to those leaders? Maybe, okay, here's the thing where you might go to sleep better at night. Maybe you challenge that leader in their ethics. Maybe you challenge they're not being ethical. Maybe they're lacking the integrity, and you challenge that and you call it out. What would it look like if you called it out and you made them become aware of it, because you had the courage to be ethical and the courage to lean into your integrity, the courage to say, I won't tolerate this. I don't want to work with this, because that will be more alignment with you and your authority to show up in your fullest integrity. And if you get fired, then you will go to bed at night knowing that you did so in your fullest integrity. and that just removed it out of misalignment from you, and you will fully align in a better space where your integrity will be valued and your ability to be courageous will be valued as well. If a leader lacks awareness to being called out, that leader needs better work, and that's not a leader you want to work for. Because I'll tell you, leaders that can handle being challenged, those are the leaders you want to work alongside, because then they have emotional intelligence and they will become self-aware in those moments where they're like, you know what? Thank you for calling that forward, actually. And maybe in the moment they might be spicy. All right. They're not going to fire you on the spot. And if they do, just wait 24 hours, come back for wrongful termination. But at the end of the day, you come to a space with them, like, do not waver in your own integrity. Because as a young leader, you're going to be challenged. You are going to have times where people might challenge your emotion or who you are authentically, or they might question and try to challenge you. Stay firm in who you are and your integrity. Stay firm in who you are and your courage, because that's what shapes good leaders. Integrity and courage. Loyalty does get you places in ways where you can have peers that you grow alongside and you're loyal with. But if they lack integrity, if they lack the things that you are strong into, and you see it come to life, expire loyalty faster so that you can place loyalty in the places that will elevate you and the brands that you are and work in. Because integrity is the one thing that is one of the most valuable assets you could ever have as a leader. And don't ever waver in your integrity. Never abandon that part of you. That will always speak more volume than anything. It's
my gosh. I could go for 2 hours with you today.
Oh my gosh. I love it. I looked up and it was 4:44, and my gosh, did we get into it today in a positive way, right?
We did. So I have this, I didn't warn you about this ahead of time. So I have this little rapid fire question where I don't want you to think too much about it. So I've got 5 rapid fire questions for you.
Oh.
So kind of like top of the head kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You ready? All right.
I'm still ready.
So,
I love this.
One outdated leadership model to ditch forever.
Oof. That only the leaders get to make the decisions. It you know what? Involve your team. They probably have the best feedback you could ever have. Your team is the ones that are boots on the ground. Involve them. They're going to give you some really good feedback. They're going to help you shape the next iteration in your business.
Fantastic. Hardest duality you've mastered.
That's a loaded question, because there's a couple prongs to that. I would say, when we look at I've mastered it, but being a mother and a leader, being a working mom that travels and will not sacrifice my family in order to be successful. I hold really hard boundaries around that. And I've watched some of my peers lose their families because they couldn't master that duality. They would say yes to everything versus saying no to some things. People respect me more when I say no because I prioritize my family first. And that's a duality I will not compromise on ever.
Love it. Daily practice for building emotional intelligence.
Oh, I love this. Man, you're asking great questions. A daily practice for emotional intelligence is truly where you need to pause and pre-record before you hit send. It's like this is a practice that I really because sometimes when you're feeling spicy, don't hit send. All right. Yeah. A daily practice is obviously like there's a journaling practices, but I'm not in a journal mode every day. But I'll tell you what, I talk to my GPT every day. I have really gotten my GPT is my thought partner, is my assistant, is one of the things that I can go brain dump every day. Lean into that tool because it will help you really like navigate where you might need to, let some feelings out and then make sure that you don't hit send before you become objective versus emotional, right? So be really allowing yourself to process before you hit send. Yeah.
Interesting thing. Say that story I just told you about. I typed the email and I plugged it in and I'm like, can you just make sure that this sounds like me? Because interesting. All right. So every leader If every leader could hold one opposing truth, what would it be?
Man, I would say like you don't have to compromise. You don't have to compromise your integrity in order to be successful. And you don't have to compromise your authenticity to be palatable. That's important. Yeah.
Dream collaboration to explore duality further.
Mhm. For me, like someone I'd like to collaborate with someone, or like what expand on that.
On duality.
Like, oh man. First person that comes to mind on someone that speaks volume to duality is freaking John Cheplack. Like, man, if there is someone who embodies duality with pure mastery, it's John Cheplack. That man will teach you a lesson in life, but in business, but really, like, that is someone that I watch and learn from. If the listeners haven't watched this person, John is a master of duality.
I've met him. He's fantastic.
He's fantastic. But when you said who's a person that could also speak on duality, is that guy.
Well, put in a word for me to, maybe to be on my podcast.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
So this that's some key takeaways for before we end today. So in one sentence, what is the leadership shift that you hope listeners can make today?
Oof. Man, if there's one thing I could speak volume to anyone listening here and really shifting within yourself is that, it goes back to that conversation of it's okay to have a public presence and a private life. Mm-hmm. And that you will master how to leave it at the door and compartmentalize, and that you're strong enough, you're capable, you're worthy of creating all the changes that you want in your life. You just have to choose it. And sometimes it's that choice, that decision to say, today I'm going to show up fully in my fullest energy and compartmentalize so that I can have my public presence and preserve the peace of my private life.
Yeah, love that. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so great. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of the People Profit Podcast. If Brandi's takeaway on duality gave you a fresh lens on leadership, please like, follow, share, and subscribe, tag a fellow leader, and spread this insight. Brandi's message needs to go across the whole world. Brandi, tell our audience the best ways to connect with you and to dive deeper into your work.
Oh man, I'd love to connect with anyone listening. Quickest way to grab me is just go to my website. It's just my first name, last name.com. So brandimunguia.com. Don't worry, my friends. I know it's a unique name, but Sandy will have my name here in this podcast. Yep. Copy and paste it. It's just my first and last name.com. All my social media is there. Everything's there. That way you're not having to search me all over the place. Just one spot's good for me. But I look forward to connecting with anyone that wants to connect.
I love it. And Brandi has a really cool community that it's just amazing. So make sure that you reach out, start integrating today. Brandi, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on our show today. Very much.
Thank you so much for having me, Sandra. It's been a privilege and an honor to serve your audience. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And leaders, remember, true success lives in the balance. Keep leading with both heart and edge. I'm Sandra Coker. See you next time.
That's a wrap on this episode of the People Profit Podcast. If you found a nugget of wisdom or even just a spark of inspiration, share the love, subscribe, leave us a review, and pass the episode along to a colleague who's ready to build a people-first culture. Big thanks to our sponsor, Human Power Solutions, for championing workplace where humans thrive and profits rise. Want to learn how they can energize your team? Head over to hpowersolutions.com to get started. I'm Sandra Coker, reminding you that when you invest in people, you invest in profit. See you next time.